like audio squeak in the beginning. Hey guys, welcome back to Film Man. As always, I'm Connor, and I'm joined by my good friend Dan.
Howdy.
So Dan, we're getting a little saucy today.
Yes, a little steamy, a little racy. Yeah, this is a concept that we were trying to push for last November to be our penultimate episode in season 3, but the season ended up having to run one episode short, so we had to cut this one. But we were finally able to bring it to fruition. This was originally, because it was released 100 years ago last November, an analysis and talking about 1920s Swedish erotic comedy classic Eroticon paired with the 1998 film Wild Things. And mostly what this episode, what we want to be is a think piece, just talking about the history of erotics in cinema, how it's kind of transformed, how it's evolved, and maybe where it's going. So I guess we can start off with Eroticon. There is
Things happen in the movie.
things occur.
There's a plane ride.
There's a plane ride. That was fun. That was cool. There's an opera scene
There's an opera scene
with the Shah.
The Shah,
And his wife.
dude. I hope one day I grow up to be the Shah's favorite wife.
Oh boy.
No, as the movie was not that engaging, as evidenced by me and Dan making a joke in the opera scene once the title card says, like, she was the Shah's favorite wife. And I went, to be the Shah's favorite wife.
It was difficult. We just landed on that bit watching that movie for like 15 minutes because it's difficult because this movie does not translate very well to modern, I guess, sensibilities.
Yeah.
But if there's anything that we can say about it, it is one of those films that marks the earlier depictions of sexual engagements. Now, for a little context, it is about a married couple.
Yeah.
That by the end, and this is heavy spoilers on Eroticon, they end up getting divorced.
I know,
but
right?
it is through them having trysts outside of their marriage.
Yes.
Nothing is shown ever, only slightly implied, I suppose.
Yeah, we know that she gets in an automobile with another man.
Yes.
Which is the height of scandal.
Oh boy.
If I see my girlfriend getting a ride from someone who's not me,
Oh dear.
I'm going to dump her on the spot.
Oh my god.
If she gets in an Uber with a man, it's over.
It's
over. If my girlfriend is walking down the street and another man asks her for the time, it's over.
That's it. Oh god.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, by not showing anything, it's the concept of mere implication. This is where we're at in cinema, is the idea of implication.
And also,
of these
in
concepts.
like the 20s, implication was saucy enough.
Exactly.
But honestly, we're going to talk about in Wild Things, what we view as saucy is much more than implication.
Exactly. I think, I guess the subtleties, obviously, of this film are lost on newer eyes. It makes it hard to swallow these days. But, I mean, the lewdest moments that you even see in this film, all from an actress in like a Princess Leia-esque bikini, the favorite wife of the Shah during the opera, just dancing.
Yeah,
like
you see a woman
in
wearing a little
act.
bit less clothes.
Yeah.
That's as racy as it gets.
Yeah.
There's a woman in a play that mirrors the events of the film, but is much more interesting than the events of the film.
Yes.
She's wearing a bikini.
I do appreciate movies that have like almost stories within stories.
Yeah.
Like an opera scene that like tells a whole story in a sense.
Yeah.
Which this one did, and I
did.
did appreciate it. That's the thing. I do appreciate this film for a couple reasons. I really quick mention the score.
Yeah,
the score was great on the DVD that I had purchased for this. A great score. And then also like some of the sequences. Some of the sequences are just good, interesting visual sequences, which is difficult because this is a visually interesting film, but not in the way I think we were hoping for this
Not
episode.
in the way to discuss on this episode.
Yeah, it was difficult because like we kind of looked at each other at the end of it like, what all are we going to talk
Or we
about?
thought we
Like,
had the wrong Eroticon.
exactly. So
Yeah, because the movie is not sexually suggestive at all.
no.
Like you said, it's a mere implication. And even when we have like some scenes where people like intimate with each other, it's just a person like standing close to someone and things like that.
Yeah.
The erotic, I guess, thing in Eroticon is the possibility of an extramarital affair.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
that
got
this
people.
woman is dating two men on top of her husband, and one of them's a pilot.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
You know how loose those pilots are.
Those
fly boys.
Those pilots. It's funny that I'm actually going to mention another movie about pilots in just a minute. But yeah, it is kind of the idea of I think what makes this film more saucy, more erotic, is the fact that it's a comedy, and none of these characters living in this extramarital relationships all portrayed negatively. I think that's a big part of it. Like, she doesn't go outside of her marriage and then like get some comeuppance. Like, she just divorces the husband. And it's fine. It's like, oh, okay.
If anything, we're supposed to be like, oh, the husband's like a putz. Like,
Yeah,
of course
he
she's
is.
like cheating on him. Yeah.
Exactly. It is a comedy in 5 acts. That is the title that comes underneath Eroticon right at the beginning. And boy, did I feel all 5 of those acts.
I felt all 5 of those acts.
Oh,
I've
man.
never had a longer hour and a half in my entire life.
And we're not on here to bash Eroticon.
Yes,
It's,
no.
It had its time in the sun, is all I'm saying.
It's different societal standards for what we find engaging and racy and stuff.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
in 1920, people like tilted their glasses down and said they're allowed to show this in the picture hall.
Exactly.
Yeah, but here, it's a thing where we're sitting at home and we're watching it and we're just kind of bored.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's not really much going on. It's just this woman apparently is having an affair because text on a screen told us so.
Yeah.
And we see her talking to another man and driving in his car / plane. We never really like have any inclination of like an affair of any context.
Exactly.
For all I know, she could have held this pilot's hand once, and now
now it's like,
talk
oh
of the
no.
town.
Yeah. But I guess to move on from this point, I want to do at least give the audience, Connor, a little context on what occurs in the 78 years in between Eroticon and Wild Things, because there is a really interesting, transition we have. I mean, we're talking about the history of erotics in cinema, and we're not talking about the more underground erotic cinema that you might know from like pornography and stuff and how that was eventually developed. But we're talking about like a studio putting in money, making a big budget production with erotic themes. And again, talk about that movie that has a pilot in it. You might know the movie Wings, 1928. The first Oscar winner for Best Picture has a bare-chested woman in the film. Moving on, you have Ecstasy, 1933, starring Hedy Lamarr. Not only the first mainstream motion picture to depict intercourse, but also the first to dramatize a woman's climax as well.
Can we say that on the radio?
Climax? Yes.
Yeah.
And intercourse? Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
I get nervy. No, it's.
I mean, the thing is, they both take place off screen.
They do.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction.
It is.
But still, in 1933, just the implication of a woman like being satisfied from intercourse was probably incredibly controversial. Well, here's the thing, not even probably, it was incredibly controversial. It is still controversial today.
Yeah, it is. And even after this, you see, you get to the late 20s, you get to the early 30s, and you're seeing a rise in this until there's a big drop-off once the Hays Code is instituted in the mid to late 30s, and you really don't see a rise in that again until the 1960s.
Yeah.
And that's even when you get that, that's from foreign cinema.
Exactly.
Because even international cinema was affected by the Hays Code, and when you're talking about distribution in so many ways.
Yeah,
it's like you want your film to show in America? Well, you have to follow Hays Code, and you have to follow the standards of this country, which was, a huge industrial boom. Like, this is where you would make money from it outside of your country. It was going to America, going to Hollywood. But you have films like Belle de Jour in 1967 which I think is a very big kind of landmark for, I guess, Louis Buñuel. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's he's a French director.
Yeah, Catherine Deneuve.
I believe it's. I'm going to say it wrong too. I believe it's Louis Buñuel.
Okay, yeah. The tale of a bold housewife who invigorates her day-to-day life by becoming a prostitute. Nothing overtly raunchy takes place off screen, but fantasies of rape and domination abound. It's kind of more one of those unforgettable moments in cinema when it comes to like eroticism. And then you see that kind of seeping in with the fall of the Hays Code. You see, you know, films like Midnight Cowboy, Last Tango in Paris. You have a lot of things just coming in to the mainstream. And I think it continues. I mean, like, Europe continues to get more experimental. Next up, you hit the 80s. You have home video, which I think kind of revolutionizes eroticism in cinema. You look at something like Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, 1989. And this kind of actually, at least films of this era kind of spark a movement of erotic thrillers, which is a really interesting genre of film that was always very much in the underground until it kind of hit a boom easily between 1993 and 1998. I think that's where erotic thrillers, as a marketable and profitable genre, found themselves in their heyday, 1993 to 1998. You saw a bunch of films coming out under the erotic thriller kind of concept.
Yeah.
And knowing Wild Things, 1998, it comes in right at the end of that. So I guess right here, it would be good to take a quick PSA break, and then we'll just talk about...
We go talk about Wild Things.
Wild Things. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute. See you soon.
In a hurry for lunch? Avoid the lines and place your order on the Bite app by Sodexo. Pick up your hot, fresh order from the grill, open at 11 a.m. Monday through Friday and 4 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday for your late-night cravings. Bite accepts retail flex and other forms of payment.
Hey guys, welcome back to Film and like Dan mentioned, we're going to talk about Wild Things now from 1998, a movie we both saw for the first time a couple days ago.
Yes, knowing very little about, honestly. I went into it not knowing much.
They were wild.
Yep.
And apparently there's some nudity in this motion picture.
But Wild Things, 1998, a film made in the exact same year that 1920's Eroticon entered the public domain.
I think it's the year I was born. I was like, that's also true.
Oh, that's also true. You're as old as this movie.
I am.
Wild Things is often regarded as a kind of a guilty pleasure film, an erotic thriller film.
I actually want to quote a fellow by the name of Roger Ebert.
Oh, Roger. Have we ever talked about him on this show?
I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
So I was on the internet doing research for this episode a couple days ago, and there is a startling lack of academic research done about Wild Things.
And I think that kind of speaks to the reception of this film. Because I myself was trying to find any analysis of this film, and I feel like it was...
isn't done.
Yeah, I feel like it was just getting passed off as just some sleazy, trashy film.
Yeah, but this is a quote from Roger Ebert, who loved the movie and gave it 3 out of 4 stars. So Roger Ebert, as always, a man of class. Films such as this either entertained or offend audiences. There's no neutral ground. Either you're a connoisseur of melodramatic comic vulgarity or you're not. You know who you are. I don't want to get any postcards telling me this movie is in bad taste. I'm warning you, it is in bad taste. Bad taste elevated to the level of demented sleaze. And I agree with that in the best way possible.
Yeah. I think... Again, talking about the era of erotic thrillers, I think this is one of the last greats, or at least one of the last memorable ones. I think that makes sense. I mean, it's films like this in the late 90s were going out of style. And I find it really interesting that this movie comes out when it does, because it does feel like such a statement of the 90s, but also in a way a contrast of the 90s, you know? And I'm looking at like how things are portrayed and how saucy everything is. It feels parodical in that sense, where it's like you've seen characters like this before, like you've seen Hollywood like cheerleader popular girls kind of tease to the audience. You've seen like the 90s goth chick stereotype tease to the audience.
Often
like,
played by Neve Campbell.
Often played by Neve Campbell and her co-star
Denise Richards.
Denise Richards. And at the end of the day, it's like I like how this film kind of flips it on its head.
Yeah.
It does. This is actually the one article I could find was a great article by Thrillist. We'll link it down below if you're listening to the YouTube video of this. But it's the idea that Wild Things was well known for its prurience, mostly because with Kelly and Susie, the characters.
Kelly, played by Denise Richards, Susie, Neve Campbell.
Exactly. Engaging in a threesome with Sam and a later girl
Light
tryst.
spoilers for Wild Things.
On it, I think we're going medium spoilers for Wild Things. It's hard
It's not a
to...
spoiler to say the controversial sex movie has intercourse in it. But yes, there is sex scenes between them and Matt Dillon's character, and then they have intercourse themselves in a swimming pool.
Yes. And I think when it comes to talking about the history of erotics in film, this is where we see... this feels like the true landmark of the 3 stages. I think it starts with implication, and then it moves on to visual depiction, and then it moves further into crafting aesthetics, which I think Wild Thing fits perfectly. This is where crafting aesthetics comes in. It's watching Wild Things and engaging with its aesthetics is very much informed by the setting. You know, the steamy and muggy yet ever picturesque Florida glade town.
Yes.
That just it feels it's split. You know,
the extreme contrast in wealth to show like depravity.
Exactly. You have like this affluent yacht club community, and then kind of the lower class residing in the mysterious swamp area of the Everglades, and kind of contrasting those. And you have just these. Oh God, the color in this movie feels so important. Like it's like this bright and sun-dipped color tones, you know, matched with these soft waves and the buzzing bugs that are heard like perpetually in the sound design. No, like
everything
it really
McNaughton
puts
does
you
is purposeful.
Yeah, it puts you in Florida.
Yeah,
and it feels like the setting is so perfect, so intentional.
Yeah, and to speak about like sexuality, I think McNaughton is not being like graphic to be graphic. I think he's directly making a commentary what we want to see.
Yeah.
And I think this whole movie is very self-aware and smart in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I get why it's controversial, especially coming off Eroticon where everything is like, I saw her in a car with a guy. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing these 2 girls who in the context of this movie are barely legal, engaging in a tryst with their guidance counselor, who I believe Matt Dillon was in his late 30s at the time.
Yeah.
So man almost double their age.
Yeah. A man known in the community for trying to marry into wealth.
Yes.
No, because he had been with Denise Richards' mom.
Yes.
So I think what's really interesting if we're tying these 2 movies together, Wild Things and Eroticon, it's Wild Things itself sets out to con the audience in a sense.
Exactly, yeah.
And not unsimilar the way I think audiences in the 1920s may have been intrigued by a Swedish film entitled Erotikon. So both similarly, these films are tackling concepts of lurid affairs and sexual desire as a way, I think, to bait the audience and offer them a film that is not, in fact, all just obsessed with sex and pleasure.
Yes.
You know, like, in this sense, I find both films using erotic themes as a way to engage the audience instead of being the main topic.
Yeah.
As I feel like both of these films are known for or remembered as, even though that's not exactly what they are.
Wild Things uses promiscuity as a way to mislead and like get us off the path.
Exactly.
Like they use it to trick certain characters.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be so engaged in like the 2 really attractive women like having sex, and not the broader implication of like what this means, who's doing what.
Yeah.
It's why like Wild
Things got like 3 endings and 5 twists in it. Yeah. It's really it keeps you on your toes.
It does.
And it's also important to mention that these 2 erotic films for their times were comedies in a sense, or had comedic themes. I feel like
Wild Things is supposed to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Eroticon's comedy obviously misses the mark for my modern sensibilities.
Yes.
But it's called Eroticon, a comedy in 5 acts.
Yeah.
And it is. And Wild Things, I think, is the same way, a comedy. It has comedic elements. It's almost laughably including the 2-bit lawyer, played by Bill Murray. And I find, like, the amount of twists and double crosses that kind of leave the viewers, I guess, racking their memories to see where the movie had previously pulled the wool over their eyes. That is the comedic
You're
sense of
supposed
this
to be
film.
bamboozled by this movie. And here's the thing, some of the twists quite literally come out of nowhere. Like, I won't spoil it because it's at the very end.
Yeah.
But a twist involving Kevin Bacon's character literally comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But it helps explain an issue earlier on in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's a thing where it's like the script is incredibly smart, but you're just supposed to like realize that you are being fooled like everyone else is in this town.
Exactly. And I think that's an interesting way to do it, you know, because it really feels like for the first, I guess maybe 25 minutes of this film, it sets itself out to be a very like average 90s feeling film.
Yeah, there's the preppy girl who really likes her teacher, and then there's the goth girl who hates authority.
Yeah, but it also has like, ooh, it's gonna be like rated R, it's gonna be like super sexy, so this is what gets audiences.
We see Denise Richards washing a car in a white t-shirt, and there's a whole lot of weird corruption and like promiscuity and all this stuff surrounding this event in this town.
Yeah.
And the movie deceives you. It makes you think like
it continues to deceive you, you know? Like, and I guess it's a question of, I don't think we're here to talk about whether that is effective, but also just, I think we're here to talk about the fact that this is how the film uses eroticism.
Yes.
You know, to kind of show you so many angles of these pretty wild people.
Yeah, these wild things.
Doing wild things.
No, I guess it's supposed to like distract you from what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Which I think, sadly, the movie does too good of a job. Because I think people only see like the threesome and the scene in the pool. Mm-hmm. And they don't look at this for like, here's the thing, the movie is trash, but it's purposeful trash. No, here's the thing, and that got people in the theater to see this movie, which is also another part of deception. Which I should watch the trailer, see how this movie was marketed.
I mean, like, I'm not, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of this movie. I didn't really like it at all that much.
In contrast to me, I love this movie.
You love this movie.
I think it's
I'm
amazing.
Not a fan. Because I just don't think this is the style of movie that usually engages me personally. But I can still respect it for the time.
Exactly, yeah.
That it at least symbolizes. So I guess moving on into the final segment, let's talk about the legacy of Wild Things. Let's talk about just the future of eroticism. Because the following 23 years, what did we get? We got 50 Shades of Grey. We got Jennifer's Body. We got Nymphomaniac Volumes 1 and 2. Like, what
is the future for eroticism?
What is the future of eroticism? And where does Wild Things stand?
We can't forget about 365 Days.
Right.
That was a very big one. Where it's the future of it, I think it's just we're going to have more things like 365 Days. We're getting a second 365 Days, I'm pretty sure. But it's we're getting 720 days.
720
days. 780 days.
There it
30
is.
days, whatever. I'm terrible at math. That's why I talk about movies.
730
days.
I'm losing it.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we're going to get more things probably on Netflix that are going to be very controversial. And Gaspar Noé's Love is also a good example, too, where they have actual sex in that movie. It is not simulated. They do engage in actual intercourse. I think we'll have more like arty stuff like that. We're never going to have the mainstream studio movie that is like this level of like raunchy like sex thriller.
Exactly.
And like think if Wild Things came out today with like insert like two actresses who are big now, I don't know who you'd put.
Yeah.
It would be on like Netflix and people would talk about it for a week and then it would disappear.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm assuming this had in 1997 where it was like being marketed, where it's like Neve Campbell, Denise Richards, they kiss. And like a parent like runs to you and is like, no child of mine is going to see this smut on the TV. They can show this on MTV. That kind of stuff. Yeah. You're not going to have that. You're going to have a thing where it's going to be on the Netflix YouTube channel. People are going to click and be like, I hear you see Sabrina Carpenter in this movie and she's naked. And then like they'll watch the movie and then they'll turn it off. Yeah. Or you'll have like little kids like who just want to see the nudity and they'll just go to the nudity. They'll look on Google, nudity, Wild Things, and they'll just like find it.
And I think that's more commentary on just how
society's evolved.
Yeah, and how the internet has changed it, streaming services.
Not to sound like a certain Martin Scorsese, but I think we just respect film less. It's not about like the narrative; it's about what we can get immediately gratification from the motion picture.
Yeah,
It's here's the thing, and Scorsese, I not to put my own feet to the fire here. That's not the right expression. I think he's right. He's sounding very condescending and gatekeepery, but what he's trying to say, I do agree with. How the Swedish don't value it as art anymore. Really, it is purely a commodity. Which film's always been a commodity, but that's always been second to the vision of the artist. At least when Scorsese was coming up. Mm-hmm. And now with the streaming services and everything, it is just a commodity. But I guess the long-winded point I've been making for the past 5 minutes is that I think these movies will still exist, but they'll only really exist on streaming services and as a way for people to be like, oh my gosh, can you believe so-and-so gets naked in this movie?
Yeah.
And they'll skip to 35, 20 seconds, 3 seconds in and see nudity.
Exactly. So I think what we'll end up seeing is, at least what I think... I don't know, what I'd like to see is directors, actors moving into projects like Wild Things-esque without the looming cloud of we need to make this shock value. We need to advertise this in a way that will get people interested in the shock value bits instead of having that just be, a theme you employ.
Yeah, but once people see the movie, that's not what they leave talking about.
Let's just be cool with sex, guys.
Yeah. I think we're getting there. I think we're slowly but surely getting... We're
inching our way.
If you ask anyone above the age of 50, we've gone past the point of no return. We're all sex devils.
Heathens.
We're heathens. No, here's the thing. And that's been the case forever. Mm-hmm. I'm sure 50-year-olds in 1920 in Sweden were they can show this at the picture hall.
Dear goodness, I can't handle it.
This girl gets in a car with a man, and you're telling me my young, impressionable daughter can see this motion picture? If she starts driving around with other men, I couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. But that's, you know what I mean? It's the kind of thing where I made that joke 3 times.
And they're all staying in.
Here's the thing. I'll never understand parents, but I'll never get it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think if there's one thing that I want to consider as the future of eroticism in cinema, the thing I hope for is that it's just not that it changes how it's portrayed, how it is, but just the fact that it becomes less taboo.
Yeah.
That it can be talked about.
Yeah.
With your kids, with your friends, to a point where it's not something you need to duck around the corner and be like, is this movie going to have this? No, it's just, you're at a point where it can be an open conversation. It's just a film that has it, you know? And
have it being a conversation starter as opposed to the entire conversation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. Hopefully, you didn't hear us say the word sex and run for the bomb shelter.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm keeping it. Move on.
I feel weird saying that word on the radio.
Bomb?
Yeah.
Dude, we're not in the airport, man.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting nervous.
No, anyway. I get it, man. This is a nervous episode for us. We don't want to get whacked.
Whacked.
We don't want to get whacked.
The mob puts a hit on us for talking about wild things. Okay. So, thanks for listening, guys. It means a lot that you guys stick around.
Okay, if you guys saw Wild Things or 1920s Eroticon, hit us up. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What do you think these films have to say about eroticism? And what are your thoughts? What is the future of eroticism?
You can point to me and you can say, you fiend, you support 1998's Wild Things? Ooh, sir, you're a bad apple. I can't believe I ever associated with you, you dirty fella.
Have fun burning in heck.
Have fun burning in heck. Hope you have your copies of Wild Things to show that guy in there.
Oh,
what's wrong with us?
I don't know. Okay.
Hey guys, thank you for listening.
Thank you for
tuning in. We appreciate you. Thank you for dealing with that whole weird bit I just did about this man assaulting my taste in Wild Things.
Yes.
And
who is that guy?
Like I said, you should watch Wild Things, guys.
Yeah, please do.
And form your own opinions.
Yeah.
And if you hate Wild Things, you think it's perverse, you think it's disgusting, you think it doesn't add anything to the motion picture, please let us know. I would honestly love to have that conversation. And if you want to leave that conversation on a digital form of some kind, you can leave the comment on YouTube on the video that comes out later, or on my Letterboxd at Cranberry18. That is CRAND Berry 18.
Yeah.
And while I don't have a Wild Things review, please comment your thoughts on Wild Things on my review of Cats.
Yes.
I think that'd be very funny.
Put everything you want to say about Film and on his review of Cats. Join us next week for a very exciting installment of the Andes. It is the winners episode. We are going to be talking about the Andes. We are broadcasting live from Heck because that's where we've been transported to after watching Wild Things. We will see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. See you then.